She told me no one exciting would ever want me. Just like that. Over leftover Chinese takeout on a Tuesday night. Have you ever had someone you love look right through you like you're nothing? Like you're so forgettable that even strangers wouldn't give you a second glance? Drop a comment if you know that feeling. I need to know I'm not the only one who's been made to feel invisible. I'm David, and yeah, I know how pathetic this is going to sound, but let me take you back to that Tuesday. We'd been married 8 years. 8 years of me trying to be the husband Sarah wanted, and apparently failing at every turn. I thought we were just having a normal argument about money, about how I wanted to take a weekend trip somewhere, maybe try that new hiking trail upstate. Something different for once. David, you're so boring, she said, twirling lo mein around her fork like she was discussing the weather. It's always hiking or some documentary you want to watch. When's the last time you did anything spontaneous? Anything that made my heart race? I remember setting down my chopsticks, carefully, like if I moved too fast, something would shatter. I thought you liked hiking. I used to pretend to like it. She cut me off. Just like I pretend to find your little weekend plans exciting. But honestly, you're predictable, David. Safe. Boring. The word hung there between us like smoke. Boring. Not just the things I did. Me. The person I was. I tried to defend myself. Asked her what she wanted me to be. A different person entirely, apparently. Someone who took risks. Someone who made her feel alive instead of whatever I made her feel, which was apparently nothing. You want to know the truth, she said, and I should have said no, should have walked away, but I sat there like an idiot, waiting for her to finish destroying me. I can't imagine any woman finding you exciting, David. Not really. You're the kind of man women settle for when they're tired of dating. You're comfortable, like an old sweater. An old sweater. 8 years of marriage, and that's what I was to her. She kept going, told me I was too careful, too considerate, too nice, said she missed feeling desired by someone who actually had passion, someone unpredictable, someone who might actually surprise her for once. Face it, she said, scraping the last of her dinner into the trash. No one exciting would ever want you. That's why you ended up with someone like me, someone like her, as if she was settling too, as if we were both just two boring people stuck together because nobody better would have us. I sat at that kitchen table for an hour after she went upstairs, just sat there, turning her words over in my mind. Boring, predictable, safe, unwanted. The thing is, I used to be different. In college I played guitar in a band. Nothing serious, just weekend gigs at coffee shops and small venues. I wrote songs, terrible songs probably, but I wrote them. I stayed up all night talking about philosophy and art and all the places I wanted to travel. But somewhere along the way, I became what Sarah wanted. Stable, reliable, the kind of husband who remembered anniversaries and never forgot to take out the trash. I got a good job in accounting. I bought a house in a safe neighborhood. I became the man I thought she wanted to marry. Apparently, I'd become exactly the wrong man. That night, lying in bed next to her, she was already asleep or pretending to be. I stared at the ceiling and felt something crack inside me. Not break, not yet, just crack, like ice on a pond when winter's ending. I started paying attention after that, to how she looked at other men, how her eyes lit up when her friend Jessica talked about her new boyfriend, some guy who rode motorcycles and traveled for work, how Sarah laughed at other men's jokes in a way she never laughed at mine anymore. I watched her scroll through social media, lingering on photos of couples doing exciting things, skydiving, traveling to exotic places, dancing in clubs I'd never even think to take her to, and I realized she was right. I had become boring. I'd traded everything interesting about myself for stability, for safety, for the promise of a quiet, comfortable life. But quiet and comfortable weren't enough for Sarah. Maybe they never had been. The crack in my chest got deeper every day. Every time she sighed when I suggested we stay in and watch a movie. Every time she found an excuse not to go to bed at the same time as me. Every time she looked at me like I was furniture she was tired of rearranging, but couldn't afford to replace. 3 weeks after that Tuesday night dinner, Jessica came over for one of their usual wine nights. I was in my home office, supposedly working on spreadsheets, but really just listening to them laugh in the living room, listening to Sarah be the animated, vibrant woman she never was around me anymore. At some point, I heard my name, then silence, then Sarah's voice, lower now, but still audible through the thin walls. I love David, I do, but God, sometimes I feel like I'm married to a piece of beige wallpaper. Jessica laughed. Not meanly, but knowingly, like she understood exactly what Sarah meant. That's when something shifted. That crack in my chest didn't just deepen, it spread, like a windshield hit by a stone, fracturing in all directions at once. I closed my laptop and went to bed early that night. But I didn't sleep. I lay there thinking about beige wallpaper, about old sweaters, about the man I used to be and the man I'd become. And for the first time in 8 years of marriage, I started wondering what would happen if I stopped being so predictable, if I stopped being so safe, if I stopped being so boring. I had no idea how dangerous that wondering would become. Jessica started paying attention to me about a month after that beige wallpaper comment. And I mean really paying attention. Have you ever been starving for something you didn't even know you needed? Like when someone finally sees you, really sees you, after feeling invisible for so long. Tell me in the comments if you've ever been that desperate for validation, because that's exactly where Jessica found me. I'm David, still the boring husband. Except suddenly, I wasn't boring to everyone. It started small. Little things I almost convinced myself I was imagining. She'd text me directly instead of going through Sarah. Hey David, what's that restaurant you mentioned last week? Or can you send me the link to that documentary you were talking about? The documentary Sarah had rolled her eyes at. The restaurant Sarah said sounded too pretentious. But Jessica wanted to know. Jessica was interested. Then came the compliments. I love how thoughtful you are, David. Sarah's so lucky to have someone who actually listens. You're really funny. I don't think people appreciate your humor enough. I should have seen it for what it was. But when you've been told you're wallpaper for months, having someone treat you like art is intoxicating. The first time she touched me, really touched me, was at Sarah's birthday party. We'd had it at our house, about 20 people in the backyard. Sarah was holding court by the fire pit, telling some animated story about her work drama. I was cleaning up paper plates and beer bottles, because, well, that's what I do. I clean up. Jessica appeared beside me, with an empty wine glass. You're always taking care of everyone, she said, her hand landing on my arm. Not just a quick pat, a lingering touch. Her fingers actually squeezed my bicep. Sarah doesn't know how good she has it. I froze, just completely froze. When was the last time Sarah had touched me like that? Voluntarily, I mean. Not just absent-minded contact while passing in the hallway. I'm just helping, I mumbled. But I didn't pull away. You're always just helping, Jessica said. But who helps you, David? I looked at her then. Really looked. Jessica had always been pretty, but she'd been Sarah's friend. Off limits. Background noise. But standing there in our backyard, with her hand still on my arm and her eyes focused entirely on me, she wasn't background noise anymore. She was beautiful. More than that, she was present. She was there, in that moment, seeing me instead of looking past me to something more interesting. I'm fine, I said, because that's what I always said. Are you? She asked. Because you seem empathetic lonely. Lonely. Not boring, not predictable. Lonely. Like being alone was something that happened to me, not something I was. I should have walked away, should have gone inside, found Sarah, played the good husband. Instead, I stood there holding a stack of dirty paper plates while Sarah's best friend told me I deserved better. Sarah doesn't see you, Jessica said quietly. But I do. That night, after everyone left and Sarah passed out on the couch still in her party dress, I lay in bed replaying those 4 words. But I do. Like a song I couldn't get out of my head. Jessica started coming around more after that. Always with reasonable excuses. She needed to borrow something. She wanted to ask Sarah about work. She was in the neighborhood, but she'd linger. She'd find reasons to talk to me. She'd ask about my day, my thoughts, my opinions on things Sarah never bothered to ask about anymore. One afternoon, Sarah was at her yoga class, and Jessica stopped by to pick up a book. I was in the garage, trying to fix Sarah's bike chain. Jessica appeared in the doorway wearing jeans and a tank top, looking like she'd stepped out of some commercial for normal, happy life. Need help? She asked. I've got it, I said, but my hands were covered in grease and I was clearly struggling. She came over anyway, knelt down beside me, close enough that I could smell her perfume, something light and floral that Sarah never wore anymore. Sarah had switched to this musky, expensive stuff that smelled like she was trying too hard. You're good with your hands, Jessica said, watching me work. I bet you're good at lots of things Sarah doesn't appreciate. There it was again, that implication that I was being wasted, that I had value Sarah couldn't see. I don't know about that, I said, but something in my chest was warming up, something that had been cold for a long time. I do, she said. I notice things, David. I notice how you make coffee perfectly every morning, how you remember everyone's birthdays, how you actually listen when people talk instead of just waiting for your turn to speak. She was cataloguing me, like I was worth cataloguing. Sarah doesn't know how lucky she is, Jessica continued. If you were mine, she didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. The implication hung in the garage air between us like heat. If I were hers, what? I'd be appreciated, desired, seen. I looked at her then, really looked, and saw something in her eyes I hadn't seen in my own wife's eyes for years. Want. Not just physical want, though that was there too, but want for me, specifically, for who I was instead of who I might become with enough improvement. Jessica, I started, but I didn't know how to finish. I know, she said softly. I know you're married. I know she's my friend. But God, David, someone should want you the way you deserve to be wanted. My hands were shaking, actually shaking. When was the last time anyone had wanted me, not needed me, or tolerated me, or settled for me, wanted me? She reached over and wiped a smudge of grease off my cheek with her thumb. Such a simple gesture, but the way she did it, the way she looked at me while she did it. I should go, she said, but she didn't move. Neither did I. We stayed like that for maybe 30 seconds. Her thumb still against my cheek, my heart pounding so hard I was sure she could hear it. Two people on the edge of something that would change everything. Then we heard Sarah's car in the driveway. Jessica pulled back like she'd been shocked. I should definitely go, she said, standing up quickly, through the back gate. I watched her leave, and something fundamental shifted in my understanding of myself. I wasn't unwanted. I wasn't boring, not to everyone. Sarah came into the garage 5 minutes later. Was someone here? I thought I saw Jessica's car. She stopped by to get that book you mentioned, I lied. My first real lie to my wife in 8 years of marriage. Oh, did you get the bike fixed? I looked down at the chain, still broken. Tools scattered around me, like evidence of my complete distraction. Almost, I said, but we both knew I was nowhere close. That night, Sarah and I had dinner like normal, watched TV like normal, went to bed like normal, but nothing felt normal anymore, because for the first time in years, I felt like someone worth wanting, and that feeling was dangerous. It happened on a Friday night when Sarah went to her sister's for the weekend. She'd been planning this trip for weeks, complaining about how she needed space, needed time away from our suffocating routine. Have you ever made a decision that you knew would destroy everything, but you made it anyway? Like watching yourself drive off a cliff in slow motion. Share your own moment of self-destruction below, because I need to know I'm not the only one who's chosen revenge over reason. I'm David, and I'm about to tell you about the night I stopped being the good husband. Sarah left Friday afternoon with barely a goodbye kiss, just a distracted peck on the cheek while she scrolled through her phone. Already mentally gone. Try not to be too boring while I'm away, she said with that laugh that wasn't really a laugh anymore. More like a dismissal. I watched her drive away and felt something cold settle in my stomach. Not sadness, not loneliness, something darker, something that whispered, she thinks you're nothing, prove her wrong. I hadn't planned anything. Honestly, I was just going to order pizza and watch whatever I wanted on TV without Sarah sighing about my choices. But around 7, my phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. Heard Sarah's out of town. Want some company? I've got wine and Chinese takeout. I stared at that message for 10 minutes. 10 full minutes of my thumb hovering over the keyboard. Because I knew, deep down, I knew this wasn't about friendship or casual company. This was about what had been building between us for weeks. I could have said no, should have said no, made up some excuse about being tired or having plans. Instead, I texted back, sure, come over. She arrived an hour later wearing jeans and a soft sweater that somehow made her look both casual and beautiful. She'd brought wine like she promised, but she'd also put on makeup, perfume. The kind of effort you make when you want someone to notice you. We ate Chinese food at my kitchen table, the same kitchen table where Sarah had called me boring months earlier. But with Jessica, conversation flowed easily. She asked about the band I used to play in, wanted to hear about the songs I'd written, actually listened when I told her about the novel I'd started and abandoned years ago. You should finish it, she said, leaning forward with genuine interest. I'd love to read it. When was the last time Sarah had asked about my writing? When was the last time she'd shown curiosity about any of my abandoned dreams? We moved to the living room with the second bottle of wine. Jessica curled up on one end of the couch, and I sat on the other. But somehow the space between us felt charged. Electric. Can I ask you something? She said, swirling wine in her glass. Sure. Do you love her, Sarah? Still love her? The question caught me off guard. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because no one had asked me in years, not even Sarah. I think I love who she used to be, I said slowly, or maybe who I thought she was. But now, I don't know. I think we both just got comfortable being disappointed in each other. Jessica nodded like she understood exactly what I meant. She doesn't deserve you, David. She really doesn't. Maybe I don't deserve better. Stop. Jessica set down her wine glass and shifted closer to me on the couch. Don't say that. Don't let her convince you that you're less than you are. She was close enough now that I could see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes. Close enough that her perfume was making me dizzy. Or maybe that was the wine. She said no one exciting would ever want me, I admitted. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. Jessica's face changed, softened and hardened at the same time. She said that to you? I nodded, suddenly embarrassed. She's probably right. She's not. Jessica's hand found mine on the couch between us. She's so wrong it's almost funny. If she can't see how amazing you are, that's her loss. Her thumb traced across my knuckles. Such a simple touch, but it sent electricity up my arm. I see you, David. I've always seen you. I should have pulled my hand away. Should have suggested we call it a night. Instead, I found myself turning my hand palm up, letting her fingers intertwine with mine. Jessica, I started, but I didn't know how to finish. What was I supposed to say? That I was married? She knew that. That this was wrong? We both knew that too. I know this is complicated, she said quietly. I know I shouldn't be here, shouldn't feel this way about my best friend's husband. But David, I can't pretend anymore that I don't care about you. She was looking at me like Sarah used to look at me in college, like I was someone worth wanting, someone worth risking something for. I care about you too, I admitted, more than I should. We sat there for a moment, hands linked, both of us knowing we were on the edge of something that would change everything. The smart thing would have been to pull back, to remember my vows, my marriage, my responsibilities. But I was so tired of being smart, so tired of being safe and boring and predictable. When Jessica leaned closer, I didn't pull away. When she whispered my name, I answered by touching her face. When she kissed me, soft and tentative at first, then deeper, I kissed her back like a man who'd been starving, because I had been starving, for attention, for desire, for someone to want me not despite my flaws but because of who I was. We moved slowly, carefully, like we were both still giving ourselves chances to stop, but neither of us wanted to stop. When she took my hand and led me upstairs, when we passed the guest bedroom and she paused, looking at me with a question in her eyes, I answered by pulling her closer. Are you sure? She whispered. I thought about Sarah, probably laughing with her sister about her boring husband back home. I thought about months of feeling invisible, unwanted, dismissed. Yes, I said, I'm sure. What happened next wasn't love. It wasn't even really about Jessica, if I'm being honest. It was about proving something, to myself, to Sarah, to anyone who thought I was just a boring man in a boring marriage, leading a boring life. It was about feeling wanted again, about remembering what it felt like to have someone look at me with desire instead of tolerance. It was revenge wrapped up in intimacy, and in the moment, it felt like exactly what I needed. Afterward, we lay in my guest bed. I couldn't bring myself to use the bed I shared with Sarah, and for the first time in months, I felt powerful, important, like I mattered. She's going to lose you, Jessica said quietly, her head on my chest. If she keeps treating you like this, she's going to lose you completely. Maybe that was true. Maybe this was the beginning of the end of my marriage. But in that moment, with Jessica's warmth next to me, and the proof that someone could want me still fresh in my mind, I couldn't bring myself to care. I'd spent so long being the good husband, the reliable man, the safe choice. For one night, I'd been something else entirely. I'd been wanted, I'd been chosen, I'd been exciting, and I had no idea how much that one night was going to cost me. Sarah found out 3 weeks later. Not because I confessed, not because someone saw us together. She found out because Jessica told her. Have you ever had someone pull the rug out from under your entire life in a single conversation? When everything you thought you knew about loyalty and friendship just explodes? Drop your own betrayal stories below, because I'm still trying to understand what happened. I'm David, and I'm about to tell you how my revenge became someone else's weapon. Those 3 weeks after Jessica and I slept together were the strangest of my marriage. I felt different, confident in a way I hadn't been in years. When Sarah made her usual dismissive comments about my weekend plans or rolled her eyes at something I said, it didn't crush me anymore, because I had a secret that proved her wrong about me being unwanted. Jessica and I didn't sleep together again. We texted occasionally, little messages that felt charged with meaning. Thinking about Friday night, she'd write, "Or you looked good today." Nothing explicit, but enough to keep that feeling alive, that feeling of being desired. I started standing up to Sarah more. When she complained about me being boring, I'd shrug and say, maybe you're just not paying attention. When she dismissed my ideas for date nights, I'd go ahead and make reservations anyway. She noticed the change. You're being weird, she said one morning over coffee. Different. Maybe I'm just tired of being predictable, I replied. She looked at me strangely but didn't push it. I think part of her was actually intrigued by this version of me, the version that didn't apologize for existing. But then came Tuesday afternoon. I was at work when Sarah called, and I could tell immediately something was wrong. Her voice was shaking. I need you to come home, she said. Now. What's wrong? Are you okay? Just come home, David. I found her sitting at our kitchen table with her laptop open, tears streaming down her face. Jessica was there too, sitting across from her with red eyes and a tissue box between them. My stomach dropped. I knew before either of them said a word. Sit down, Sarah said without looking at me. I remained standing. Sarah, what sit down? She screamed. And I'd never heard her voice crack like that before. I sat. Sarah pushed her laptop toward me. On the screen was a Facebook message thread between her and Jessica. I could see my name mentioned multiple times, but before I could read it, Sarah slammed the laptop shut. Jessica has something to tell you, Sarah said, her voice deadly quiet now. Don't you, Jessica? Jessica looked like she wanted to disappear. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I told her, Jessica whispered, about us. About Friday night. The world tilted sideways. You what? I had to, Jessica said, finally looking at me with desperate eyes. I felt so guilty. She's my best friend, David. I couldn't keep lying to her. I felt like I was drowning. You told her everything, Sarah said, her voice getting stronger and colder with each word. She told me everything, David. How you've been flirting for weeks, how you invited her over when I was gone, how you took her to our guest room and slept with her. I looked back and forth between them, trying to understand what was happening. Jessica, why would you? Because I love Sarah more than I could ever love you, Jessica said quietly. Because I realized what we did was a mistake. A terrible mistake that was hurting my best friend. The way she said it, like I had been the mistake, like I had pursued her instead of the other way around. That's not how it happened, I said, looking at Sarah. She came to me. She's been coming after me for weeks. Jessica's face crumpled. David, please don't make this worse than it already is. Make it worse. I stood up so fast my chair fell over. You're the one who told me you cared about me. You're the one who said Sarah didn't deserve me. You're the one who what? Sarah interrupted. Who seduced you? Is that what you're going to say? That poor little David was seduced by the evil temptress. I looked at Jessica, waiting for her to tell the truth, to admit that she had pursued me, that she had made me feel wanted when Sarah made me feel invisible. Instead, Jessica looked at Sarah and said, I'm so sorry. I never should have let him convince me to betray you. Let him convince me. The room went completely silent, except for the sound of my world falling apart. That's not what happened, I said quietly. Then what did happen, David? Sarah asked. Tell me your version. I looked at both of them. Sarah, my wife of 8 years, looking at me like I was a stranger. Jessica, who 3 weeks ago had whispered that she saw me, now looking at me like I was something shameful she needed to wash off. You told me I was boring, I said to Sarah. You told me no one exciting would ever want me. You made me feel like nothing for months. So you decided to sleep with my best friend. I decided to stop letting you make me disappear. Sarah laughed, but it was an ugly sound. Oh, this is rich. This is really rich. So this is my fault? I made you cheat? You made me feel unwanted in my own marriage, and that gives you the right to betray me? I had no answer for that, because she was right. Nothing gave me that right. No amount of feeling dismissed or boring or invisible justified what I'd done. But the way Jessica was sitting there, letting Sarah believe that I had been the pursuer, that I had convinced her to betray her friend, that was its own kind of betrayal. Tell her the truth, I said to Jessica. Tell her how this really started. Jessica shook her head. I've told her the truth. I've told her that I made a terrible mistake, and I'm sorry. Tell her about the garage. Tell her about all the times you came here when she wasn't home. Tell her what you said about her not deserving me. Jessica's face went white. David, stop. Tell her. Enough. Sarah slammed her hand on the table. I don't care who started what. I don't care who seduced who. You're my husband. You made vows to me, and you broke them. She was right. Completely right. And in that moment, looking at my wife's devastated face, I realized that my revenge had accomplished nothing except destroying the one person I'd promised to protect. Sarah, I started. No, she said, standing up. Don't. Just don't. Jessica, I think you should go. Jessica gathered her purse, avoiding my eyes. At the door, she turned back to Sarah. I'm so sorry, she said. You don't deserve this. You deserve so much better. After Jessica left, Sarah and I sat in silence for a long time. Finally, she spoke. You want to know what's funny? She said. I was actually starting to like this new version of you, the one who stood up for himself, the one who seemed confident. She laughed that ugly laugh again. Turns out you weren't becoming a better man. You were just becoming a cheater. I had no defense. No explanation that would make any of this okay. I'm sorry, I said. Are you? Or are you just sorry you got caught? I thought about it. Really thought about it. I'm sorry I hurt you, I said finally. I'm sorry I broke my vows. But I'm not sorry someone finally made me feel wanted. Sarah nodded like she'd expected that answer. Well, congratulations, David. You proved me wrong. Someone exciting did want you. She stood up and headed for the stairs. Too bad she wanted me more. 6 months later, I'm sitting in a one-bedroom apartment that smells like takeout and regret, trying to figure out who I am now. Have you ever gotten exactly what you thought you wanted, only to realize it was never what you needed? Tell me about your own Pyrrhic victories in the comments, because I'm still learning how to live with mine. I'm David, and this is what happened after I proved my wife wrong. Sarah filed for divorce 2 weeks after Jessica's confession. Not because of the cheating, exactly, but because of what I said afterward. I'm not sorry someone finally made me feel wanted. Those words ended our marriage more definitively than the affair itself. I can forgive you for sleeping with her, Sarah told me while packing her things. People make mistakes, but I can't forgive you for not regretting it. I can't forgive you for choosing to hurt me and then acting like I deserved it. She was right. I know that now, but at the time, I was still too angry, too vindicated, too drunk on the idea that I'd finally proven I wasn't boring. The divorce was quick and clean. No kids to fight over, no major assets to divide, just the house, which Sarah kept. And 8 years of marriage that apparently meant less to me than one night of feeling desired. Jessica disappeared from both our lives completely. Blocked me on social media, changed her phone number, even quit the yoga studio she and Sarah went to together. I heard through mutual friends that she moved to Portland. Started fresh somewhere no one knew what she'd done. I tried texting her a few times after Sarah left. Part of me wondered if maybe we could make something real out of what we'd started. If maybe all of this destruction could lead to something better. She never responded. Not once. It took me 3 months to understand why. Jessica hadn't wanted me. Not really. She'd wanted the drama, the excitement of doing something forbidden, the power of being able to take something that belonged to her best friend. And when the drama got too real, when there were actual consequences, she chose Sarah. Of course she did. Sarah was the real relationship. I was just the weapon Jessica used to blow up her own life. And when the smoke cleared, she realized she'd rather have her friend than her friend's boring husband. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd cheated to prove I wasn't unwanted, only to discover I was more unwanted than I'd ever imagined. Even the woman who'd slept with me didn't actually want me. But here's the thing nobody tells you about getting revenge. It changes you. And not in the ways you expect. I'm not the same man who sat at that kitchen table listening to his wife call him boring. I'm not the reliable, predictable husband who cleaned up after parties and fixed broken bike chains. That man died somewhere between Jessica's first text and Sarah's last packed box. The man I am now is harder, more cynical. I don't trust easily anymore, and I don't give people the benefit of the doubt. When the barista at my local coffee shop smiles at me, I wonder what she wants. When my divorce lawyer's assistant was friendly during our meetings, I assumed she was just doing her job. I've been on a few dates since the divorce was finalized. Apps, mostly. I'm honest about what happened, well, mostly honest. I tell them I had an affair, that my marriage ended badly, that I'm still figuring out how to be single again. Most of them don't call back after the first date. The ones who do usually have their own relationship disasters they're recovering from. We're like wounded animals circling each other, trying to figure out if the other person is safe or just another predator. I had coffee with a woman named Lauren last month. She was smart, funny, recently divorced herself. We talked for 3 hours about books and travel and all the things I used to talk about with Jessica. But when she laughed at my jokes, I found myself analyzing it. Was it real laughter? Was she just being polite? Was she already planning how to use me for something? You seem guarded, she said as we were leaving, like you're waiting for me to disappoint you. She wasn't wrong. I am waiting for that, because I've learned that people will tell you exactly who they are if you pay attention. Sarah told me I was boring every day for months before I finally heard her. Jessica told me she was selfish and manipulative from the very beginning. I just chose to see it as passion and honesty. I live alone now, in an apartment complex full of other divorced people and 20-somethings who haven't figured out their lives yet. I cook for one, which mostly means I don't cook at all. I watch whatever I want on TV without anyone sighing or making suggestions. I go hiking alone, which Sarah would have said was pathetic. But sometimes, on those solo hikes, I remember who I used to be before I became someone's husband, before I started measuring my worth by how much someone else wanted me. I've started writing again, Not the novel I abandoned years ago that belongs to the man I used to be, but new things, honest things, stories about men who make terrible choices and have to live with the consequences. My therapist says I'm making progress, says recognizing my patterns is the first step toward changing them. She asks me what I learned from my marriage, from the affair, from the way everything fell apart. What I learned is this: you can't make someone love you by being what they want, and you can't prove your worth by having someone else want you. Worth doesn't come from external validation. It comes from knowing who you are when no one is watching. I also learned that revenge is a luxury you can't afford if you want to keep your soul intact. I thought I was getting back at Sarah for making me feel small. Instead, I made myself smaller. I became exactly the kind of man I never wanted to be, the kind who breaks promises and justifies betrayal. Would I do it differently if I could go back? That's the question everyone wants answered, isn't it? The redemption moment where the protagonist sees the error of his ways and wishes he could change everything. The truth is more complicated than that. I'm sorry I hurt Sarah. I'm sorry I broke my vows and destroyed our marriage. I'm sorry I let Jessica manipulate both of us for her own entertainment. But I'm not sorry I found out who I really was under all that desperate need to be wanted. I'm not sorry I learned that being boring isn't the worst thing you can be. Being cruel is. I'm not sorry I discovered that I'm stronger than I thought, even if I had to break everything to find out. Sarah was wrong about one thing. I wasn't boring because I was safe and predictable. I was boring because I'd forgotten how to be myself. I'd spent so long trying to be the husband she wanted that I'd lost track of the man I actually was. I'm not that man anymore. I'm not the husband who cleaned up after parties or the cheater who justified betrayal. I'm something else now, something still taking shape. Maybe that's what happens when you burn your life down for revenge. You don't get the satisfaction you thought you'd get, but you do get to find out what's left when everything else is gone. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, what's left is worth rebuilding on.